Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington. The war against Iran now hitting the 1-week mark as the administration faces mounting questions about its true military objectives, its claims about civilian casualties, and its response to soaring energy prices. This morning, President Trump appearing to move the goalposts when it comes to the U.S. mission. In a post on social media calling for Iran's, quote, unconditional surrender. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked what the president meant by unconditional surrender. Here's what she said.
What the president means is that when he, as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, determines that Iran no longer poses a threat to the United States of America and the goals of Operation Epic Fury has been fully realized, then Iran will essentially be in a place of unconditional surrender, whether they say it themselves or not.
It comes as gas and oil prices are skyrocketing. At the pump, the average price per gallon is up 34 cents since the war started last week. And U.S. crude oil settled today at more than $90 per barrel, rising 35% just this week. That is the biggest weekly gain ever recorded, going all the way back to the inception of the crude oil contract back in March of 1983. Today, White House Press Secretary also addressing concerns of runaway energy prices.
Let me just walk you through the president's thinking on this. We have to focus on the short term and the temporary goals of Operation Epic Fury to obliterate the Iranian regime will be a very good thing for the energy and oil markets and for oil prices across the globe in the long term, when you no longer have a terrorist regime that is restricting the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz and to the rest of the world.
And we're also learning new details about the strike on an elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of this war. Iranian officials say more than 160 people were killed in that strike. The Pentagon says it is investigating whether it was a U.S. strike that hit that school. But two U.S. officials tell NBC News during closed-door briefings, administration officials told lawmakers the U.S. was operating in a section of Iran where the school was struck. Joining me now is NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, and NBC News correspondent Daniele Hamamdjian is in Beirut. Christine, I have to start with you and some of these stunning figures that we've been following. Let's talk about gas and oil prices first. Is there a ceiling when it comes to oil prices?
Well, look, we had a record high back in 2008, I think, of $140 a barrel. And you saw after the war began in Ukraine, when Russia invaded Ukraine, you saw a spike in oil prices then. I guess it depends on how long, quite frankly, this conflict lasts in Iran and how wide it spreads, to be honest.
Well, Christine, I guess the question a lot of people have, because they seem to spike pretty quickly. Yeah. Does it take longer for them to come down, or could they come down just as quickly? President Trump continues to insist, look, yes, they've gone up, but they're going to come back down.
Yeah, and really what you're hearing from White House officials is patience, that the aim of this particular mission in Iran is really important, that longer term that would mean lower oil prices. Look, we've seen this many, many times. It's just the nature of the beast. Prices tend to go up much more quickly than they come down. That has happened. It's been studied. You know, it's one of those economic studies when you go to business school, you learn about. And we have seen just this week has been such a dramatic just such a dramatic rise. And you talk to people who are trying to fill up their gas tanks. It's noticeable right away, especially if you run a small business or you drive your car for your job. So this is something that is front of mind. And I'll also say this has been something that the White House for months has been pointing to as a reason why you should trust Trump economic policies, because inflation was defeated. That's the way the White House put it. And gas was a really good example of that. And now it is reversed.
Well, and I keep going back to that fact, Christine. President Trump continued to talk about gas prices. It would almost be one of the first data points he would mention when you talk to him about the economy. Put this into broader context, if you will. We know that affordability is the #1 issue for voters. We're in a midterm election season. How important are gas prices to a presidency? I know that President Biden's chief of staff checked them every single morning.
Look, because this is a real feel economic factor for people. You fill up maybe every week, and so it's something you notice. Even if it maybe doesn't affect your family budget, it does affect the psychology of the household. But I will say Bank of America had some fascinating studies or research today where they said that, it had been sticky inflation on food, sticky meaning it was just not getting any better on food, that people were really unhappy about. But falling gas prices allowed them to continue spending as a household, right? They would be able to make up the grocery bill by the falling gas prices. And that benefit has just disappeared in a matter of days. And so that will be very closely watched for what it means for consumers. Do they start to pull back on spending, and does it hurt the rest of the economy more broadly?
The other real field data point, the jobs market. We got that anemic jobs report today, and the previous jobs numbers were revised downward. What are the implications of those figures, Christine?
Look, it's a dramatic downshift. I mean, you had only 116,000 jobs created last year, because now we've had these new revisions for December. And then you had this weak February. That number right there, that 126, I think that was actually even revised down a little bit, too. No, that was 126. Yeah, it was exactly 126. So you've got all of these sort of revisions and downshifts, and frankly, it tells you that there's a no hire, no fire job market, maybe slightly more firing in February, and that is a real change from the prior year when you had almost 1.5 million jobs created. A few things here: tariffs, mass deportations, and now a new headwind, which is higher energy costs. Will there be some sort of an energy shock from a war in Iran? TBD.
All right. Well, I know you're going to watch it very closely. Christine Romans, thank you for starting us off on this Friday.
Welcome.
Really appreciate it. Let's head over to Monica Alba at the White House. Take us inside your conversations. Monica, how concerned is the administration about these rising gas prices, and are they scrambling to try to come up with a plan to address them?
They are tracking it very, very closely, Kristen, and they did have a couple of meetings on that exact issue this week. We know, according to Secretary Rubio, that this was one of those things that they said going into making the decision. They knew this was going to be a big factor, and that's why the Energy Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, and others have been trying to work on some possible plans to mitigate the oil prices. But as you've just been discussing, there really isn't anything they can do to flip the switch or help in the immediate, and it's the president who is making that crystal clear, saying, yeah, you're probably going to see these go up. You're going to see the gas pump prices go up for a little bit, and then hopefully they'll come down. He's talking about that in a very matter-of-fact way that you and I both know could become a huge issue and liability for this White House, because it is something that they are constantly touting. So I do think this week, as they turned a little bit more from the obvious overseas implications and the operational updates, there is a way more concentrated focus now on the domestic impact of all of this. And I do think you have the White House actively discussing additional plans, additional ways in which they could address this, other plans that they could come out and try to tell the American people about, that they are still considering but haven't decided to fully act on yet.
Yeah, and Monica, we know that all of this comes as the president has some key meetings coming up with defense executives as well as his Secretary of Defense. Walk us through your understanding of the agenda in those meetings, Mon.
Yeah, and the president just actually put out a pretty lengthy readout about the meeting, saying that it was a successful meeting, that these defense contractors, some of the largest defense contractors in the world, have agreed to quadruple their production of the exquisite class weaponry that he is saying and has argued for days the United States has enough of to potentially carry on conflicts like the one in Iran forever. But at the same time, they say, and the White House is trying to argue that this meeting was scheduled weeks ago, they say they need to ramp up that production for potential future other conflicts, or because the stockpile eventually could be depleted enough that there would need to be additional munitions. So the president is announcing that these defense contractors are going to meet again in 2 months. They will return to the White House to provide an update to the president. And according to the White House, they say that there are going to be additional plants that need to be built. And so now you have different cities, he says, that are bidding on the potential contracts for that. So it does seem like this is a moment where the White House is trying to say, well, don't worry, don't panic. We have enough munitions. We have enough weapons. But at the same time, on the other hand, we want more. We always want to be building that up. And so that is a big focus of the administration today and going into the next couple of weeks as this conflict stretches on. Kristen.
And Monica, I wonder how much of a focus the messaging of this is. You have different administration officials and Republicans saying different things. Is this a war? Is this not a war? Is it a conflict? Is there a strategy to explain what is actually happening to the American people in the coming days, Mon?
Yeah, and it's a great question because we've kind of seen the president in fits and starts on this. He had those pre-recorded videos that he did from Mar-a-Lago, then he offered some remarks. It does seem like every event, even if it's not focused specifically on the conflict in Iran, the president opens it by giving some kind of an update. Yesterday, he was honoring the Inter-Miami soccer team for their MLS championship, and he did decide to talk about Iran for the first 6 minutes or so. So today, he has another sports roundtable. It's possible he will do the same, but almost every single time that the president talks about it, more questions are raised about the end game, about what could the administration actually mean when they say that this isn't about regime change, but they definitely want to see the regime change, and they have ideas about which leaders they would like to see potentially lead Iran, but they haven't necessarily detailed some of those specifics. And so I do think this is a week where just a couple of days ago you had totally contradictory messaging from the Secretary of State to the president, going back and forth in a matter of hours. I think the White House is aware of that, and they are trying to do a little bit more to make the message a bit clearer. But again, every time that the president does take questions on this or talks about this, he is sometimes introducing competing narratives and ideas that then the White House still needs to explain further. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
All right, Monica Alba at the White House. Thank you so much, Monica, for your great reporting. As always, we appreciate it. Danielle, let me turn to you. You're in Beirut, where Israel has launched a wave of attacks. Walk us through the past 24 hours. How have things developed there?
Yeah, well, you know, it all really is focused on one suburb of Beirut called Dahya, Kristen, and that suburb is behind me over the bay over there, and that is where Hezbollah has a stronghold. It is a Hezbollah stronghold, and there have been strikes all week, but yesterday came an evacuation order that in the past, you know, was directed at one building or two buildings or a block, but this was for entire neighborhoods affecting hundreds of thousands of people. You could really feel the absolute panic in the air, because in the past, when these evacuation orders have been posted, you know, the strikes have either come within 15 minutes or 3 hours. So people ended up grabbing whatever they could, the clothes on their back, and fled as quickly as they could. There was gridlock traffic. And here we are today, 24 hours. There was intense strikes over the night, throughout the day. It's been relatively quiet here for the past few hours, but I can tell you, throughout the city now, there are people in makeshift camps along the promenade, on the beach, in parking lots. And you've got the UN now raising the alarm, saying that when it comes to international humanitarian law, where the issue of forced transfer is concerned, there are some fears there that those laws could have been violated.
Well, we've been watching what Israel's been doing very closely. Israel's been intensifying, as you just laid out, its assault on Lebanon. What are the actual goals? Do you have a sense of that?
I mean, ultimately, for Israel, this is about disarming Hezbollah, and then we get into the weeds of domestic politics here. Earlier this week, the Lebanese government banned Hezbollah military activities. It is still a political group, but it banned its military activities. How that's going to be enforced is the big question. I've asked people, and it's met with a smile because they think it's absolutely unrealistic. How are you going to enforce that? But meanwhile, this week, Israel says that it has struck 500 targets. It's now amassed tanks along the border with Lebanon in the south. Hezbollah has told people in Israel along the border that they have to evacuate, and they say they're engaged in direct combat with Israeli troops. There is no sign whatsoever, Kristen, that this is de-escalating. And what officials have said today is that they now have 500,000 people, 500,000 people displaced in a tiny country of 6 million people. That is a big chunk of the population. They are now preparing for stadiums to take in thousands and thousands of refugees. This is a country that is painfully familiar with war, and they fear they've just got dragged into a new one that could last long after, no matter what actually happens in the rest of the Middle East, specifically in Iran, Kristen.
Well, your reporting just underscores all of the concerns about a widening war in the region. Danielle, please stay safe. Daniele Hamamdjian in Beirut for us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.